there's a standard in the United States as it relates to administrative law called arbitrary and capricious behavior by the administrator. And so the administrator in this case would be the SEC. And so the DC Circuit ruled in the Grayscale case that Gary Gensler and his team were quote unquote arbitrary and capricious in rejecting the Grayscale Bitcoin application. And so that was done knowing that they were arbitrary and capricious. There's very smart people. Gary went to law school. He took administrative law. And so there's a bug in the system, and I believe the bug in the system is Elizabeth Warren. And to take you back to 2020, Elizabeth Warren basically dropped out of the primary, and she basically cut a deal with the Biden administration to effectively be the president for financial services. And so she picked Janet Yellen, she picked Gary, and she hates this industry in a way that you can't possibly imagine, and her minions are going to do everything they can to block things in this industry. So
we believe that Web3 is the future. Axelar is developing the core infrastructure and tooling necessary for developers to innovate with blockchain technology and provide their end users with amazing application experiences. We achieve this by addressing the fragmentation and painful user experiences for developers and end users in today's blockchain ecosystems. Here's how. Axelar is the universal overlay network, securely connecting all blockchain ecosystems, applications, assets, and users, enabling developers to build on the best blockchain for their particular use case. The overlay network supports asset transfer, composability of applications, and generalized message passing across any blockchain ecosystem through protocols and APIs. This means developers can build their applications on one blockchain and allow their users to interact with assets, users, and dApps on any other blockchain. So what's in this stack? At its core, Axelar is a decentralized network run by a permissionless set of validators that power cross-chain interoperability requests. Designed to achieve universal interoperability, the network is blockchain agnostic, supporting diverse approaches to consensus. With only a few lines of code, protocol developers can add arbitrary chains to the network through the permissionless validators. On top of the network sit Axelar Relay Services and the Axelar SDK. The SDK allows easy access to the network and composability across the unified network of blockchains through a collection of application layer protocols and APIs. Application developers use the SDK to efficiently connect their applications, enabling greater distribution across all chains, cross-chain composability with other apps, and greater liquidity. Here are some examples. Users can swap their ETH for Atom through a decentralized exchange directly from their wallet. Users have the convenience and ability to transact from a single universal wallet instead of needing one for every network or type of asset they want to use. NFTs purchased on one chain become portable, traveling with owners as they interact across different chains. By connecting all isolated ecosystems through a unified network and providing developers with the tools they need, Axelar enables innovation, unlocks new possibilities, and grows this global decentralized economy that will empower users no matter where they are on their journeys through Web3. Axelar powers the cross-chain future.
One way to use those things well and kind of enable the internet value is interoperability between these assets. So at Ripple, this is why we have a product like Liquidity Hub, where you need a way to be able to exchange an asset from one type to another. When you have that interoperability layer, value can start moving, flowing freely. And so the same way that you saw this Cambrian explosion of the internet, enabling new types of business, new types of capabilities, we'll see the same thing here.
Staying within the SEC's chalk lines, despite conversations that you're having today around climate risk, you also, I'm sure, as a 5-member commission and as the staff are going to be considering in recent months, because you are facing a deadline coming up in May around a spot Ethereum ETF.
It is, Kaylee. You had to get your crypto question in. I do have to ask this question.
Of course, we are now about 2 months into a world in which spot Bitcoin products exist. They have had incredible demand, more than $8 billion in inflows. Now the optimism is Ether spot ETFs are next. Do you not first have to settle the question as to whether Ether is a security or a commodity? Can you answer that first?
Well, Kaylee, again, on any one of these crypto tokens, it's about the facts and circumstances as to whether the investing public is anticipating a profit based on the efforts of others. But we do have filings in front of us. I'm not going to comment. I will say this is a highly speculative asset class. One could just look at the volatility of Bitcoin in the last few days. And Look, I grew up loving roller coasters. Maybe in my adult years I don't ride them as much, but you really should be conscious as the investing public that this is a bit of a roller coaster ride on these volatile assets. And then the question is how firm is the foundation? You get to the top of that hill, how's the foundation underneath it? And are there cash flows, or what's the use case? For thousands of these tokens, there's about 15 or 20,000 of them, they also may be securities because the investing public is relying on the efforts of some group of entrepreneurs in the middle of these projects.
And would you consider Ether as part of that group that may be securities?
I understand you're asking the question, but again, I'm going to defer on that question.
The stance of monetary policy is putting downward pressure on economic activity and inflation. We believe that our policy rate is likely at its peak for this tightening cycle. If the economy evolves broadly as expected, it will likely be appropriate to begin dialing back policy restraint at some point this year. But the economic outlook is uncertain, and ongoing progress toward our 2% objective for inflation is not assured. The committee does not expect that it will be appropriate to reduce the target range until it has gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keeping longer-run inflation expectations well anchored. Headline inflation has moved down more than 3 full percentage points now to 2.4%, as I mentioned in my remarks. We want to see a little bit more data so that we can become confident and so that we can take that step of beginning to reduce policy rates. It's a very important step. We think because of the strength in the economy and the strength in the labor market and the progress we've made, we can approach that step carefully and thoughtfully and with greater confidence. And when we reach that confidence, the expectation is we will do so sometime this year. We can then begin dialing back the restriction on our policy.